Good morning, Honorable Minister, the Chair of the Board, and CEO, and colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen of the media. The pathway that we have chosen as a department in as far as the Road Accident Fund is concerned, and the future which we envisaged as part of the interventions that the Road Accident Fund to be positioned at, to be responsive to, is one of a social security net, in essence providing universal access on a no premium basis. This model has not been without challenges, and I think what the CEO was pointing out was exactly that. Minister spoke about a number of commissions that took place over the years, but of import is the commission that was chaired by Professor Vivian Taylor in 2000, which reported to Cabinet in 2002, on the importance of social security net in a country such as our South Africa, and on making the various funds, including UIF, including the social grants we give and so on, and RAF 2 impacted upon by that, to be a bigger safety net for the poor, primarily because I think even COVID has indicated that point and elucidated it quite well. What would have happened to the majority of families and communities and children if the social grants were not being paid. And therefore, as the CEO correctly points out, when a little girl is there and the father, who's a breadwinner, passes on the road accident, due to road accident, what happens to that little girl? This is a key question that the state must answer to. And the Road Accident Fund seeks to be a response to that specific question, to say it will then become a bulwark within which it protects that little girl and assists. And therefore, we had then, following the Structural Commission of Inquiry into the Road Accident Fund affairs, we then decided that we should adopt a no-fault basis. Advocate Bakato has been a champion of this thing of no fault, that in essence the state takes over the responsibility of a driver who causes an accident, and that it is not up to the little girl or his lawyers to pursue this driver in trying to recover the money from that driver, but rather the state comes into view, obviously with the understanding and the proviso that says that essentially that driver was involved in an accident. But then there are moral questions to this point of the RAPS bill, and which is what has been sending us to and fro with parliamentarians and with a number of people raising concerns. And the key concern is what happens if the driver caused an accident in the process of violating the law? Does the state still take the responsibility to actually step in on behalf of the driver and take care of the little kid? Or does the state or the little kid go on to claim from the driver because the driver had actually committed a crime, and therefore the state can be seen as stepping in to reward a criminal who has committed a crime, such as one who drives and overtakes on a burial line. The burial line exists for a reason, to say to you the road is dangerous and you cannot see the other side, but yet you overtake anyway. And when an accident gets caused as a result of that, should the state pay? And I think that this is a moral dilemma and a legal one which has been facing the issue of the no-fault policy. And therefore, we are looking at the future of RAF with still a RAPS or the Road Accident Benefit Scheme, which has defined benefits, as we've heard what the CEO says. The idea really is to say to people, and if you get injured, and this is the nature of injuries, this is how much you get paid. Even for you who have medical aids, depending on what scheme of in the medical aid you sign up to. The same medical aid, maybe MedShield, maybe Discover It, maybe Jams, maybe whatever, but they will have different packages. Whichever package you choose determine what type of benefits you get. And therefore, with the Road Accident Fund, it has been a free-for-all. And the idea really, the mandate the department and the minister has given to the Road Accident Fund is really to define the benefits and to then indicate the type of amounts we're prepared to compensate the public based on that. And therefore, the first biggest issue we have been dealing with, or the two biggest cost drivers in the administration side, first has been the lawyers. How much do they get paid and to what extent? And as the CEO indicated, we realized that the situation was untenable. We had to do away with the panel of attorneys. And in its place, I think what the CEO does not indicate is that we have signed a memorandum of agreement with the State Attorney's Office, the Solicitor General's Office, and we have already placed in excess of 80 of lawyers funded by the RAF, placed inside the State Attorney's Office, so that if there is litigation or matters to be dealt with, that those be the people who do this. They are paid based on the fixed understanding of the rates determined by us and not by them. And we see them as an extension of the arm of the Road Accident Fund in dealing with legal matters in this regard. As the CEO indicated, just in that decision alone, we are able to save in excess of 3.6 billion every year. And that is quite a revolutionary way of approaching this thing and of seeing it. The second one has been around the medical tariffs, and I think what the CEO points out to is correct, is the idea that we have to then indicate how much we will pay per injury and the nature of injuries and the compensation levels. And that's why we have published the tariffs for medical tariffs for RAF. And we will listen to the comments, but we remain steadfast that if the same communities and the same society, for what they pay for, they get relatively those type of tariffs in medical aids, they shouldn't have a problem with the tariffs that they do not pay for, if we are comparable and even competitive with what the medical aids are. And I think that is our biggest contention. Finally, we have to also have exclusions, and which is quite important to the future of RAFs. When most of you, to simplify it, if you take an insurance cover, a life cover, your insurance policy, whether you take it with Metropolitan or with Sanlam or whoever you take it out with, they would say to you that if you commit suicide within the first 6 months of the policy, we do not pay. And also the rates are accurate, meaning that they look at you as an individual. They ask you questions: how many beers do you drink in a week? And many people write their 6, whatever, just to look good, but they don't know it's going to catch up with them later when they suffer liver cirrhosis, and the insurance tell you that, there's no way if you are drinking 6 you would have gotten this thing. So it means you are an excessive drinker, you lied, so we don't pay. But they put all these exclusions to protect the fund itself from collapsing and to make sure that they only pay what is due to the beneficiaries as per what is agreed. And secondly, they also dictate a number of things. I'm sure you have seen these things that they do with yourselves. Here in South Africa, when we have a foreigner who comes onto our roads and drives here, and they do not take insurance, and if they cause an accident, the Road Accident Fund must step in. All of this is not correct, because in other countries, when you fly in, if you were to rent a car, if you at Heathrow Airport and you get off the flight and you show them you have an international driving permit and you want to rent a car, they would ask you, where's your insurance? If you do not have it, on the next desk, they are able to sell you insurance, which will cover you in the event of an accident. But in South Africa, that's not the case. A foreigner lands at OR Tambo, goes to Avis, gets a car, and then they just give it to him. If he causes an accident, we are liable to pay. And there was an interesting case, everybody knows about it, of a doctor here who cost us a lot of money in just one lane. The exclusions must help us protect and ring-fence the fund against such. We must make it compulsory for every foreigner to acquire this type of insurance and to ring-fence RAF, and this is what we see as a future RAPs. And importantly, the future RAPs, as we're making a compromise in terms of making it move forward, must also have exclusions for illegality, for those that commit wrongdoing. They overtake on a burial line, they shouldn't be liable to claim from the RAF. The state must go after them hard and fast, and yet the state must then be the one that goes after them, and not the little girl. The state must pay the little girl and go hard and fast on those that commit criminality on our roads, and that the state does not reward wrongdoing, and the state can either go on it from a criminal sanction point of view, or it can go on a civil claim type of setup. And while it's not ideal for the state to be suing its own citizens, but under the circumstances it is warranted, or even both in this regard, and that's where we are taking the RAPS bill forward. It has not been an easy road. Minister will tell you that politically it has been a problem, but importantly is that we're beginning to find each other in terms of where we are going. Now, Minister, with the work that the RAF has now done, and I'm sorry I'm speaking out of turn because I'm here to brief you about this, but importantly is that with the work that has happened and with what has just come out in terms of the trajectory we are on, we need to start asking ourselves once again as a department whether RAPS is still necessary. Because if we are to go on this pathway and we are to do all of these interventions and they are to make the current road accident fund sustainable, obviously with the type of premiums we have with all of those things, perhaps after all, and this is just a thought, we may not need a RAPS in its entirety as a new scheme. We may seek to strengthen the existing RAF, and by putting all these exclusions, all the defined benefits and all of those things into the current model. And the department will still have to do a lot of work before we say to you, Minister, please consider it and as a new political trajectory we follow. But yes, work will commence right away based on this. We will have to await first for the financials of RAF to be audited and for the conclusion of the audit report, and once those are confirmed and embedded and they have been tabled before the representatives of the people in Parliament, then we will use that as an official position to make a future determination of where we go with this. But yes, for now as we speak, the policy is RAPS, and that's where we are going with it, and the bill is before Parliament. Thank you.